A homeless girl was singing Bob Dylan's saddest song on a New York street corner. Dylan stopped to listen. She had no idea who he was. What happened in the next 3 hours changed her life forever. The autumn light was fading over Bleecker Street, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Bob Dylan, 74 years old, walked alone with his hands in his jacket pockets, a black cap pulled low over his face. He'd slipped away from his hotel without security, something he did maybe twice a year when the walls closed in and he needed to remember what it felt like to be nobody. The village had changed since the 1960s. The coffeehouses where he'd played for spare change were now expensive restaurants. The bookstores were boutiques. The revolution had been gentrified. But the streets still remembered. If you walked quietly enough, you could still hear ghosts. Dylan was passing a vintage record store when he heard it. A voice, female, young, singing. "It ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe, / it don't matter anyhow." He stopped. That was his song. Don't think twice. It's all right. Written in 1963 about Suze Rotolo leaving him for Italy, one of his most covered songs. He had heard it sung 1,000 times by 1,000 different voices. But this voice was different. This voice understood. Dylan turned toward the sound. On the sidewalk, sitting against the record store window with a beat-up acoustic guitar across her lap, was a girl. 19, maybe 20, thin, too thin. Dirty jeans, worn-out sneakers with holes in the toes, a man's oversized flannel shirt that had seen better days. Her hair was dark and tangled, pulled back in a messy ponytail. There was a cardboard sign propped next to her. "Anything helps, music student." But it was her eyes that stopped Dylan. Dark, haunted eyes that had seen too much. The same eyes he used to see in the mirror in 1961 when he first arrived in New York with nothing but a guitar and a lie about where he came from. She kept singing, eyes closed, fingers moving across the strings with the muscle memory of someone who'd played this song hundreds of times. Her voice cracked slightly on the high notes, not from lack of skill, but from emotion. She was crying while she sang, not dramatically, just tears running down her cheeks as her lips formed the words. "I'm thinking and wondering, walking down the road. I once loved a woman, a child, I'm told. I give her my heart, but she wanted my soul. But don't think twice. It's all right." Dylan stood there, 10 feet away, and listened to the entire song. When she finished, she opened her eyes and noticed him watching. She quickly wiped her face. "Sorry," she said, her voice hoarse. "I know I'm not very good." "You're good," Dylan said quietly. "You understand the song." She looked at him more closely. An old man, unremarkable, probably in his 70s, gray hair visible under the cap, weathered face, could be anyone. "It's my favorite Dylan song," she said. "He wrote it about someone leaving. I sing it about people who left me." Dylan's chest tightened. "Who left you?" The girl hesitated. She'd learned on the streets that telling your story to strangers was dangerous. Some people wanted to help. Some wanted to hurt. Some just wanted entertainment. But there was something in this old man's eyes. Not pity, not judgment. Understanding. But what Dylan didn't know was why Emma sang that specific song. "My parents?" she said finally. "They died 3 years ago. Car crash. I was 16. Dylan felt the air go out of his lungs. 16. The same age he'd been when he left home, though that had been his choice. This girl had been abandoned by death itself. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it. "Yeah," she said, looking down at her guitar. "Me too. What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Blake." Dylan paused. He'd been about to say Bob, but something stopped him. "John. Friends call me Jack." Emma nodded. "Nice to meet you, Jack. Can I ask you something, Emma? Why do you sing Dylan songs?" She smiled slightly, the first smile Dylan had seen on her face. "My parents loved Bob Dylan. My dad was a music teacher. He taught me guitar. My mom sang. We used to play Dylan songs together in our living room. blowin' in the wind, the times they are a-changin', all of them. When they died?" She stopped, her voice breaking. "When they died, Dylan's songs were all I had left of them." Dylan looked away. He couldn't let her see his face, because he understood exactly what she meant. Music wasn't just sound. It was memory. It was connection. It was the dead still speaking to you. "Can I buy you some coffee?" Dylan asked. "I'd like to hear your story, if you want to tell it." Emma looked at him with suspicion. 3 years on the streets had taught her that when strangers offered help, they usually wanted something in return. "Just coffee," Dylan said, reading her expression. "And conversation. That's all." Something in his voice convinced her. Maybe it was the sadness she recognized. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was just that she was so tired of being invisible. "Okay," she said. When Emma told him about her parents, Dylan's face went pale. They sat in a small cafe 2 blocks away. Dylan ordered 2 coffees and a sandwich, which he pushed toward Emma. She tried to refuse, but he insisted. As she ate, slowly at first, then desperately, Dylan watched and remembered being hungry. Really hungry. In 1961, in New York, sleeping in friends' apartments, playing for meals. "Tell me about your parents," Dylan said. Emma put down the sandwich. "My dad taught music at a high school in Queens. Classical guitar mostly, but he loved folk music. Bob Dylan, Pete Seeger, Joan Baez. He said Dylan changed everything, made poetry and music the same thing." Dylan listened without expression, but inside, something was breaking. "My mom was a singer, jazz mostly. She had the most beautiful voice." Emma's eyes were far away now. "On Sundays, the 3 of us would play together. Dad on guitar, me learning, Mom singing. It was perfect." "What happened?" Dylan asked quietly. "Drunk driver. Hit them head on coming home from a concert. They died at the scene. I was at home. The police came to the door at midnight." She stopped, took a breath. "I went into foster care, but I couldn't stay. The house they put me in, the people didn't care. They just wanted the check. So I left, took my dad's guitar, and left." "How long have you been on the streets?" 3 years, 2 months, 16 days. She said it without emotion, like reciting a prison sentence. Dylan was quiet for a long time. Then, "What happened to the guitar, the one your dad gave you?" Emma's face crumpled. "Stolen, 6 months ago. Someone grabbed it while I was sleeping in the subway. That guitar was all I had left of him. Now I play this piece of shit I found in a dumpster." She gestured toward the beat-up acoustic leaning against her chair. It was barely playable. Cracked soundboard, rusted strings, warped neck. Dylan looked at the guitar, then at Emma, then out the window at the darkening street. Then Dylan said something that made Emma realize this wasn't just any stranger. "Your father was right," Dylan said. "Dylan did change everything. But not because he was special, because he was broken. And he learned to turn the breaking into songs." Emma looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. "You talk like you know him." Dylan smiled slightly. "I know his music. That's the same thing, isn't it?" "I guess." She paused. "Do you play?" "Used to, a long time ago." "Why'd you stop?" "I didn't stop. I just changed what I was playing for. Started playing to forget instead of playing to remember." Emma understood that. "Yeah, me too. Sometimes when I'm singing, I can forget I'm hungry, forget I'm cold, forget my parents are gone." Dylan looked at her. This girl who'd lost everything, who sang his songs about Sue's leaving him and made them about death and loss and orphanhood, who understood his music in a way most people never would because she'd lived the pain that created it. "Come with me," Dylan said, standing up. "Where?" "You'll see." They walked 3 blocks to a music store Dylan had noticed earlier. Not a big chain, a small, authentic shop called Bleecker Street Music that sold vintage instruments. Dylan pushed open the door. A bell chimed. Inside the guitar store, the salesperson recognized Dylan immediately. The man behind the counter was in his 50s, gray ponytail, wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt. When Dylan walked in, the man's eyes widened. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Dylan gave him a look that said, "Don't." The man nodded slightly. He understood. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice professionally neutral. "I'm looking for an acoustic guitar," Dylan said. "Martin, D28 if you have it." The man's eyes flicked to Emma, who stood behind Dylan looking confused and scared. "For the young lady?" the man asked. "Yes." The Martin D28 was the same model Dylan had played on his early albums, the same model he'd used to write "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right." It cost $2,800. The salesman brought one down from the wall display. Glossy mahogany, pristine spruce top, ebony fretboard. It was beautiful. "Try it," Dylan said to Emma. Emma's hands shook as she took the guitar. "I can't. This is too expensive. I can't accept this." "You're not accepting anything," Dylan said. "I'm giving it. There's a difference." "But why?" Emma's voice broke. "You don't even know me." Dylan was quiet for a moment. Then he said something he'd never said out loud to anyone. "Because 54 years ago, a girl I loved left me, and I wrote a song about it. And I've heard that song sung 1,000 times, but I never heard anyone understand it the way you do. And I think," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "I think your parents would want you to have a real guitar. I think they'd want someone to help you." Emma asked one question that Dylan had been avoiding for 50 years. Tears were streaming down Emma's face now. "Do you think they can hear me? When I sing their songs? Do you think they know I'm still playing?" Dylan's composure cracked. His own eyes filled with tears, something that almost never happened in public. "Yes," he said, his voice rough. "I think they hear you. I think every note you play they hear, and I think they're proud of you for surviving." Emma collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Dylan stood awkwardly, wanting to comfort her but not knowing how. The salesman discreetly looked away. After a few minutes, Emma calmed down. She looked up at Dylan with red eyes. "Who are you?" she asked. "Really?" Dylan pulled a business card from his wallet. It had a name and phone number, nothing else. "My real name is on that card," he said. "Call this number tomorrow. There's a music school in Manhattan that I know about. They have scholarship programs, housing programs. You don't have to live on the street anymore, Emma, not if you don't want to." "I don't understand," Emma said. "Why are you doing this?" "Because someone helped me once, when I was young and had nothing, and I've spent my whole life wondering if I ever paid that back properly. Maybe this is how." Dylan paid for the guitar in cash. As they were leaving the store, he stopped and turned to Emma. "I have one condition," he said. "Anything." "When you make it, and you will make it, you help someone else, someone like you, someone who's lost and needs a hand. Promise me." "I promise," Emma whispered. They stood on the sidewalk. The sun had fully set now. New York was lit up, alive, indifferent to their small moment. "Thank you, Jack," Emma said. "I'll never forget this." Dylan nodded. "Play well, Emma. Play for your parents. Play for yourself." Then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd before Emma could say anything else. 3 months later, when Emma finally Googled the name on the card, Emma had called the number the next day. A woman answered, asked her name, and said, "Oh yes, we've been expecting you." Within a week, Emma was in transitional housing. Within a month, she was enrolled in a contemporary music program with a full scholarship. She practiced 8 hours a day on the Martin D28, which never left her side. She kept the business card in her guitar case, the name on it, Robert Zimmerman, a phone number, nothing else. For 3 months, Emma assumed Robert Zimmerman was just a kind, rich man who helped homeless people. She was grateful but didn't think much about it beyond that. She was too busy learning, practicing, surviving, healing. Then one night, her roommate at the music school was playing old Bob Dylan records. "Turn it up," Emma said. She'd been thinking about her parents, about the old man who'd bought her the guitar. The song playing was "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right." "I love this song," Emma said. "It's so sad." "Dylan wrote it about his girlfriend leaving him," her roommate said. "Suze Rotolo. She's on that album cover, the freewheelin' one." Emma picked up the album, looked at the cover, read the name. Bob Dylan. Then she remembered something. Something the old man had said. Dylan did change everything. But not because he was special. Because he was broken. He'd spoken about Dylan in third person. But the way he'd said it, Emma grabbed her phone, typed, "Bob Dylan real name." The search result, Robert Allen Zimmerman. Her hands started shaking. She looked at the business card. Robert Zimmerman. She looked at photos of Bob Dylan in 2015. Old gray hair, weathered face. The same face as the man who'd bought her the guitar. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. She cried. She laughed. Then she cried again. Bob Dylan had heard her sing his own song, bought her a guitar, saved her life, without ever telling her who he was. She picked up her phone, then stopped. Thank you wasn't enough. Instead, she lifted her Martin D28 and played "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right." Not for her parents this time, but for the man who saw her when she was invisible, who gave her everything and asked for nothing. "I'll make you proud," she whispered. 2 years later, Emma Blake released her first album, Don't Think Twice. The dedication read, "For my parents, who taught me music, and for Robert Zimmerman, who taught me hope." Bob Dylan never acknowledged her publicly, but those close to him said he bought the album, listened to it late at night, and sometimes when he played that song, he smiled, just slightly. In 2019, at a New York festival, Emma saw an old man in a black cap at the back of the crowd. Their eyes met. She smiled. He nodded once and disappeared. Some debts can't be repaid, only passed forward. In 2020, Emma founded Second Chance Strings, giving guitars and lessons to homeless youth. The first guitar she donated was a Martin D28. When asked why she started it, she said, "Because someone once told me to help the next person, and I keep my promises." Bob Dylan is still out there, still playing, still turning broken pieces into songs, and somewhere in New York, so is the girl he saved. That's how music works. That's how hope works.